Hey everybody, I am joined by Sam from Tabletop Stronghold. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, we had spoken in email before Adepticon, and then had to wait till things settled down afterwards for both of
Yeah,
us.
took me a
And
while to respond. That was more on me.
no, it's all good. I had a lot going on as well, but essentially we hooked up, and you sent me one of your fantastic cases as well as some terrain, and I assembled the case. I'm going to be doing a project about customizing it and stuff like that. But while I have the opportunity, thought we'd hang out and get to know your business a little bit more, and introduce you to folks as much as we can. So, Sam, tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm in West Virginia. I was
Oh, right
actually
on.
born in California, but we've been in West Virginia now for most of my life. I'm
Wow. Okay.
22, um, and I grew up like playing army men, playing with them and stuff. I used to like throw this big garbage bag of army men on my shoulder, and I'd walk to like a friend's house a couple blocks down, to play with army men in his yard all day. And it was kind of a natural progression once my older brother showed me Warhammer when I was like 14. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And,
That's a good age to
yeah.
be introduced to it too, where it's
Yeah.
just like it feels like there's a lot to learn, but it's comprehensible, and the toys seem like they're most cool.
Yeah, and you just have a little bit of money, but not enough to actually buy it. Yeah,
Yep.
but it feels achievable. Um,
Absolutely. Uh, what army caught your eye when you were younger?
it was tight between probably Blood Angels or Adeptus Mechanicus. It was like really kind of neck and neck between those two. Those probably easily my favorite. And I did actually get an army, or I got like partial armies of both and barely painted them. And I did play a bit at like a local shop, so that was nice when I was 16 or so.
Nice. That's fantastic. Moving into kind of the discussion, how did Tabletop Stronghold get started?
Well, it kind of depends how far back you want to go, but it's
Hmm?
basically when I was, again, it was kind of like a weirdly kind of natural progression when I think about it, but wasn't totally sure what I wanted to do when I was like also 16. And part of how I actually got into Warhammer, had the money for it, was I would buy these, the various bundles and stuff like that Games Workshop would release, and I would be one of those guys who splits it up and sells it on eBay. So,
Sure.
you know, if you had, so I would buy those kits, and and you'd barely make any money on it. If you're wondering how people make money on that, is barely anything. It is a race to the bottom, but it was still enough to where it was
Yeah.
like I could play and get into and actually have like some armies and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I did that for a while. That's also first where I started to really hate moving models and stuff. If you play AdMech, I'm sure there's a ton of little bits and cords and cables on them, and you
Yes.
just lose them.
I'm trying to imagine moving like the chicken walker before the use
Yeah,
of a magnetic base, like
yeah,
packing
that
that. I've seen that break so many
yeah.
times.
Oh,
Go on.
mine did, mine broke. um, and yeah, I just used to use a toolbox with a bunch of foam in it, but I
Oh
swear
wow.
that thing like ate a couple models. I just never found. But so that was all kind of when I was younger and like 16, 17, and I still wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do. But when I turned 18 and had like my first job at a fireworks stand, had a bit of money, I was kind of like, okay, what do I want to do? I could go to college, I can do my own thing. And I ended up deciding I'll do what any normal teenager does, instead of moving out, I'll buy like a $6,000 laser cutter and try to start a business, which much to my mom's chagrin, she was not happy about that. That took some convincing. And I got that first machine, and that's kind of where it started, but I don't really consider that to be the start. That would have been 2021 because
Yeah.
I had to learn CAD and learn all this stuff, and I really didn't do much that year.
Hmm.
But then in 2022, the start of the year, I was like, oh, it's full send. I'm going to spend the rest of the little bit of money I have. I'm going to do this case thing. I think it's a good idea. And
Hmm.
spent like 4 months developing it, formed the LLC, and made the Etsy and all that in like May. And that's when it really started. That's when I would say it really started really push and grow and do really well. It was
What
kind of like May, June.
what were you doing before cases?
Nothing, well, it's funny, actually, I do have a little bit. So these are actually the thing I did before I actually ever made any of the cases was actually um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
terrain. And you'll notice it's not the same as what you have. This is like some of the first stuff I ever made. And like it has the bases that are permanently attached, and it's a different shape, and it's a really dark, it's actually HDF, which isn't really good. But this was like my first thing, and it didn't do very well, but I didn't know what I was doing very much back then. And like I was trying to sell it on eBay, and that's just not the place to sell something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
got you.
And I was too stubborn not to get on Etsy, and I didn't have the website, so I didn't mess with any of that. But it didn't do that great. But I just had kind of a feeling about the cases that it was a better niche. I felt like I could do it at a better price. I could make a better, quality product.
Hmm.
And so I jumped on that, and
That's awesome.
it went really well. I made enough to where I didn't need to get a full-time job or anything like that. And I was pretty confident, like I knew wasn't gonna need to go to college, and I could just be self-taught and figure stuff out. And it started to do better and better, better. And over 2022, it's got enough to I got like another machine, and I actually started the process of moving out and getting into like a proper big workshop and stuff, have a bunch of space. Um, and that's kind of how that went.
Man, that's incredible, dude. That's awesome. What a great story. So did you bought the machine and then were like, I'm gonna learn how to do CAD, or were you like learning CAD and then were like, oh, I can
That was
further
the
this?
that was the mistake. I bought the machine and I was like, oh, I'll just learn some basic CAD in like a week. And that was not, it took me months to like really understand what I was trying to do. It took way longer than I expected.
Oh
I did
man,
that backwards.
that's always my
Um,
thought with like with getting a 3D printer or something like that. It's just like any of those machines, airbrush included, of just I have to buy the thing and then decide to learn it. And I'm like, man, I already learned a lot.
yeah, that's kind of the
Yeah.
hobby's trap, honestly. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like
Hmm.
that. I did buy an airbrush like that, and I used it twice. That
Yeah,
was it.
that's about where I'm at
Um,
too. Yeah. So walk me through here. So you have obviously more terrain sets. I am going to magically throw up an image of your website here, showing folks what you have. And then one of the things I wanted to touch on is I love the one click bundles for like a not war cry. What do they call it? Kill team sized board. That one really stood out to me. Has that been a product for a while?
yeah, whenever I've designed, so the stuff that's on the website right now is you have three sizes of terrain and three sizes of cases.
Yes.
Everything I do, I usually do in that kind of format. So I made all the cases first,
Mhm.
and they were up. And I guess to finish, like, get you caught up as far as like the business's cycle. So that was 2022. Moved into a new workshop, started 2023.
Yeah.
Started off pretty well, but that's when my workshop burned down. That was a
Oh.
really bad day. It was like an electrical fire. The building was really old. It was like 100 plus years old, and
Mm.
just was not like the best taken care of. Thankfully nobody got hurt or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it that was like the most important thing. But yeah, I lost absolutely everything. I didn't save my computer. I didn't save anything. It was just what I had on me basically. And like a couple of really lucky people had their orders in my car. They got the last ones from that
Yeah,
warehouse.
man.
um and yeah, that was really rough. I didn't have insurance or anything, so that was like a complete
Oh wow. Okay.
restart. But I
Yeah.
was able to get a business loan through like a local kind of nonprofit, and
Yeah.
I definitely went for more than I probably needed. But I wanted to like not only restart but like start back at a much larger scale. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I
I,
mean, because I
yeah,
mean, you can use the reset to its advantage, right? And kick it into gear now with the knowledge that you have.
yeah. I mean, it
Mhm.
was. I definitely learned a lot from it, and there was a lot of things I was doing in a really weird, like really slow way that just didn't make a lot of sense. Like the fact I only had two machines with what I was trying to do just made it really hard. It's like when I came back, I after I got the loan, I got like the equivalent of like eight machines or eight laser tubes now that run. So like, and they're larger ones, so the cutting's way faster, the building layout's way better. So
That's awesome.
by the end of the year, I was able to pretty much restart and be back up for that Black Friday. And that's also when I redesigned and made all the terrain sets and got all those up as well. So I
That's
was able to,
fantastic.
it was a really weird year. It was like, kind of build a new place, the fire lose
Yeah.
everything, restart and do a lot better than I was doing. Kind of a weird year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this year's been a lot more normal.
Yes. Well, good. I'm happy
Yeah.
for you. I've had years like that where the whole thing just kind of bleeds because of tragedy or something, a life event, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Well, that's been awesome. So, you have your 40K style terrain, or you know, gothic cityscape, we'll call it that,
Yeah.
and the cases. What is next in terms of like things you're excited for in terms of projects and stuff?
Well, right now I'm actually pretty focused on I didn't play this stuff as much growing up, but
Yeah.
actually it would be like D&D stuff and
Oh, right
terrain and
on.
buildings for it.
Yeah.
And I actually do have something let me put together here.
Oh
Get
yeah,
that.
please.
Um it's not quite done. It's still a bit of prototyping and stuff like that, but this is like a rough um kind of like a house basically that I'm
Oh
working on, stuff
snap.
like that for D&D, so it has all the grid stuff, the setup to be usable in that, and I'll try to make sure everything fits really well.
Is
Um,
it one half of the roof is removable so you can reach in there?
yeah, you can remove either half. It's
Oh, okay,
just
okay.
they just connect right on there. I'll put it both so you can actually see what it looks like. But yeah, I've been working a lot on this, and I'm trying to finish it up. It'll probably come out as like two sets, and part of it's also been
Nice.
trying to figure out if the cases make sense for D&D, and like trying to figure out kind of like a compatibility kind of like kit, basically like a set of smaller bases, because D&D miniatures come based. Let's see if I have an
Right.
example on me. I thought I do. Um, so they come on bases normally, and
Hmm.
part of my thinking was to figure out how do you make them compatible with the cases with magnets and stuff like that.
Right.
So then figuring out how to make that work, and I think I pretty much figured that out. So I'm not totally sure if this will be the most like valuable kind of bundle thing is how it's probably going to come out or not to D players, but I'm open to sort of feedback, and hopefully at the very least, I'm sure the terrain alone will do fine, even if the case isn't the best. D&D
Totally.
players don't really need that. So
Well, and it's interesting because like it's weird when you think about the idea of cases for different niches because like D&D players carry a bunch of stuff, but it's not the same kind of stuff, right? We have the different kind
yeah,
of volume of scale when it comes to models. Something like a I don't know, something for carrying books, that kind of thing would be really valuable. I mean, I feel like your cases could definitely carry the weight of what somebody would need. Books, maybe a few buildings and models, but yeah, I mean, it's great. I think it's worth going into. Like, certainly the market's big enough, and people are so enthused about it.
yeah. I mean, it seems like a much bigger thing for the most part than Warhammer. Warhammer is becoming more and more popular like every year, but
Yeah,
I it seems like D&D is a lot bigger. So I hope to kind of get into that
it
niche, so I'm not just entirely in one.
it is astounding when you start working with not working. That sounds so pretentious. When you start like looking at some of the other niches and brands and stuff like that to see just how small relatively Games Workshop is, even though for us it could might be like our whole world or whatever. I mean, certainly it's on all my social media feeds, my YouTube, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
But like when you pop out of it for a second, like it's not really actually that big of a fandom compared to other stuff, and D&D
yeah,
is colossal. Like
yeah. You
um
try to ask somebody what's a Space Marine versus oh, you heard of D&D? Almost everybody knows what that is, but a lot of
yep,
people still don't. Like
yep.
what's
So
that?
no, so I totally understand the idea of wanting to make end products for those people. And also there's like the crossover is also immense. Like if you took those things to Adepticon, there's D&D players there, right? I mean, that's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, well that's awesome. So moving towards D&D stuff is kind of the next phase for you. I really like that. Um is there anything you want to chat about with folks as far as like sharing your brand and things that you're stoked for as far as like business stuff?
I mean, pretty much like I said, just the D&D stuff when that comes out. I mean, hopefully that'll be within the next hopefully week or so.
Yeah.
Trying to get there. Um, I'm also excited. I'm not sure, probably a lot of people who might have seen any of my stuff have seen like the ads and stuff I make. I've tried to put a lot of effort into the video photography and making higher quality stuff. And I've put it together kind of this whole like kind of studio, and I'm gonna try to kind of do this really silly kind of wizardy character, and I've got this whole kind of set put together. So I hope people like that when they see it, because it's gonna be really goofy. So I hope that does well. People think that's fun.
Make an impression. That's all. I mean, honestly, that's the hardest part anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels weird when you're paying to have your face in front of a ton of people. It just
Yes,
feels weird.
yeah.
It's like you know,
This is a
you're the
picture
guy
of me
from
at
the
my
ad.
most embarrassing. Please, I would like
Exactly.
to give
Yeah.
you money to share this with people.
I'm gonna pay you to look at it. It just feels weird a little bit, but yeah, hopefully I figure that one out.
I like it.
But
Recently, another indie creator, he does Relic Blade, Sean Stutter, as a miniatures game, but he did kind of like a goofy presentation for his recent like Kickstarter expansion, and he was super nervous about that. He was like, "Oh," like, I thought it was super fun,
yeah.
but I don't know. It's great. It's very personal.
No, yeah, it's always, it just means like you really care about it because you're so worried, you want to make sure everybody really likes it. So I get that. It's just part of whenever you make anything. You want it to be perfect, and you're the best at finding everything that's wrong with it. You're always gonna be better than anybody else.
Of course. Yep. Yeah, your own best critic for sure. Conversation. I just want to say, like, people go support these indie creators who are out there doing the small business stuff. They support our hobby and our little environment, making it possible to get your models safely to conventions. And funny story about this case that you have. Before we met, I mentioned I did one for another company, and that was actually a intellectual property knockoff of your case. So I already feel like I have a little bit of experience. The only thing that's different is they didn't go the extra mile and put the hinges on the door. It's more of like a sliding platform.
Yeah, I always thought it was funny that they did everything. That
Yeah,
was
it
your,
was.
you know,
I was like, oh man, was the hinge market really that backbreaking? Okay.
that
Um,
was where they draw the line.
yeah, I guess so. Everyone's got to have a spot. So, but I didn't know at the time it was a false email, whatever. But anyway, when we had chatted about that, I thought that was super funny, and it's just wonderful to be able to promote someone who put the actual work in, if
Yeah.
it's possible.
No, I appreciate that, and not to knock out anybody else who makes display case or anything like what I do. What we were talking about is very specifically, there was this Amazon listing where it was like carbon copy, exactly
Yes,
the same
yeah, it was a
dimensions,
specific
exactly the
case.
same thing. Like you could tell the difference, but like I could, because obviously I make the original one, but like it was very clearly the exact same
Hmm.
case and the exact same dimension and the same steel trays, and I was just like, whoa, that's I'd never. It was so shocking to see that on Amazon because I just never thought I would be affected by like an exact copy like that.
Yeah,
Somebody overseas was like, "This is the market. This is what I want to copy."
exactly.
I was
This is
just
how
like,
we're gonna do it.
"Yeah." I was just, yeah, it
What's
really surprised me.
What's funny though is I definitely like it took me a lot longer to build the first one because I was trying to figure out that it didn't come with as good instructions as yours does. Um, but by the time like I finished that, I had kind of understood how the project works, and so I assembled the case that you sent me like Forrest Gump assembling a rifle. I was
I
just
bet I believe
got things
exactly what goes
done.
together
It
a lot
took
easier.
me yeah maybe 35 minutes, and I had that thing ready to rock. I felt good.
Well, there you go. We got benefit from it.
Yeah, I guess. Um, Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything you'd like to share with folks before we head out? Of course, all your business stuff is going to be in the description of this video. But you want to say anything?
Um, you know, enjoy the hobby, keep playing it. If you need a good case, I think I make a pretty good one. Or if you need, a competitive terrain set, I think I got something for you. Um, Whenever this goes up, there'll definitely be a promotion or something, probably like a 20-25% sale on the website or something like that. Because that'll probably be when the set actually comes out. So,
Okay,
you know, check that out if you want to see it. You know,
that sounds
that's
awesome. Well,
all.
hey, thank you so much for your time, man, and getting to know another creator in this space. I wish you the best. It sounds like a really, frankly, dramatically inspiring story of someone who is just like,
It,
I'm going to be a business owner, and dadgummit, it's going to happen.
yeah, you wouldn't think it would be that like I never like not this niche, of all the things to be this dramatic. I would not have expected that.
And
Yeah.
I was always that kind of. I'm realizing in my adulthood that I am that same person where it's like I did have that entrepreneurial spirit, but I just kept trying to fit the mold for a long time, and it just wasn't working. I was just unhappy, and
Uh,
so I respect your determination in that, figuring that out. You're so young and going for it.
Hey, well, you're
Absolutely.
still doing it now, so I
Yep.
mean,
Yep. Better late than
still
never.
worked out. Yeah, I don't think you can ever be too old to do anything like that.
Hmm.
So,
So anyway, thank you so much for your time, and I'll chat with you real soon, my friend.
all right, thank you. I appreciate it.